Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. Bro show. People live for the pound. It's good
two
to
bro
see you.
shows in a row on Wednesday.
Two bro shows in a row. That's right. All thanks to my crazy schedule. But thank you for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it here on Wednesday.
Always a pleasure.
Well, mostly thank you to Emily for letting me swap around with her. Oh my God. All right, here's the tough part of the job. What do we have today? Israel. Okay, we're gonna start with Israel breaking the ceasefire, bombing parts of Gaza, where you talk about their pretext. We'll analyze some of what that is. Then Ryan is gonna give us an update on some horrific developments in South Sudan, in Sudan. I'm not exactly familiar. The RSF, there's a UAE-backed militia and lots of killing. It's just a horrific story. We're going to talk about the storm. Hurricane Melissa made landfall yesterday in Jamaica, as well as the fact that there are thousands of American service members currently in Caribbean waters, remember, as part of this Venezuelan regime change operation. And there's some big question marks, actually, as to their own role. Are they going to continue with drug interdiction? Are they going to help with hurricane relief? They themselves potentially could be at risk, from according to some sources that I spoke to. We're going to get over to OpenAI. There is a new story from ChatGPT that nearly 1 million people are actually interacting with ChatGPT on the issue of mental illness and suicide, in addition to a major whistleblower inside of ChatGPT warning not to believe Sam Altman's claims about AI pornography, which I believe we covered in our last.
We did indeed, and it's a very disappointment because I really like my last gasp was to just trust Sam Altman.
Yeah.
And if we can't trust Sam Altman, who can we trust?
If we can't trust Sam Altman, who indeed can we all trust? By the way, you'll all be happy to know that the state of California has helped Sam Altman and OpenAI transform into a for-profit company. So now we can just get rid of that pesky little nonprofit status.
How lovely for him.
Yes, thank you to the state of California, to Gavin Newsom and all the officials there who assisted the multi-billionaire. We are going to talk about Sami Hamdi. Ryan, you're going to give us a breakdown on this. He's a British political commentator. He's critical of Israel, and he was detained at a California airport.
Current, political prisoner.
Yeah. Well,
in the United States.
Has he been deported? Or
No.
is he? Okay. Wow. Okay.
He's still,
we'll get
still in prison for his
details
politics.
there on Sami Hamdi. Rings a little hollow, isn't it, whenever we critique the UK for doing the exact same thing? Yeah. A little tough.
Yeah,
a little tough.
Let him speak freely over here, but what if they come here?
Right.
They're going to prison.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Let's go to talk. We're also going to talk about SNAP, actually, by the way. We touched a little bit on it yesterday, but there's some brinksmanship going on within the current United States government about whether some 42 million Americans who are dependent on the SNAP food stamp program are going to receive some of their payments and benefits on Friday, I believe. There's some fiscal cliff issues, but there are claims that the administration actually could pay them if they wanted to. There's actually some Republican efforts to try and to immediately fund the SNAP program, but that is getting poured cold water on by the White House and by Senate leadership. So, this is when the shutdown really actually might start to impact millions of people's lives outside of the DMV here. Not to say that it already hasn't, but in particular, really a tangible thing in addition to air traffic control problems that we've seen across the country.
Yep.
And then finally, we're going to talk with Ben Smith about China. He wrote a very interesting piece. Actually, I really liked it. And it says, Trump is poised to end Washington's decade of the China hawks. Very astute, actually, in terms of where things are going. You probably have tracked my own evolution on the issue if you've been watching over the last 7 or 8 years. And it is, of course, something that any future politician is going to have to grapple with. Before we get to that, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing. BreakingPoints.com if you can support the show. If not, no worries. Please hit subscribe on the YouTube video. If you're listening to this on a podcast, send an episode to a friend or rate us 5 stars. It really helps us with growth. Let's go ahead and put this then up on the screen. Israel has resumed the Gaza ceasefire now after some 104 Palestinians were killed in airstrikes. Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered, quote, powerful strikes in Gaza as the ceasefire breaks down. I'm going to kick it to Ryan because, Ryan, I don't really know. There were 2 separate instances of their claims for the ceasefire breakdown. So why don't you explain it to us?
If you're going to break a ceasefire, better to have 2 pretexts rather than just 1 pretext. The irony being, of course, that Israel has been out of compliance with the ceasefire from the beginning because a key part of the agreement was that it would flood in humanitarian aid. They immediately reneged on that agreement. Humanitarian aid is not flooding in. If we lived in a world where we just followed these things in a neutral and dispassionate way, we'd say, well, that is a violation of the ceasefire. I suppose now Hamas is going to just carpet bomb Tel Aviv as a response to Israel breaking the ceasefire. But let's get into the two pretexts. The first is the claims of an almost identical situation in Rafah, where what they're saying is that there was basically a cell, and this is within the realm of possibility, that a cell of fighters, whether it's Islamic Jihad or Hamas, gets cut off, from the rest of the forces, and they don't have access to the knowledge that this war has ended. Like, people on all sides have acknowledged that this is a possibility, and that if you come on these fighters, there may be conflict, and that is not ipso facto a breaking of the ceasefire that should launch a full-scale war. So according to the Israeli side, that is what happened. We don't have any information from the Hamas side, or the Islamic Jihad side, which would, if it was a fighter or a group of fighters who were trapped, like, we wouldn't actually be able to get any information from Hamas or PIJ. Like, they wouldn't know about that. This is a group they would have lost touch with many, many months ago. The last time they claimed this, according to my sources, it was in fact them just running over an unexploded ordnance or an IED, and then claiming that they had gotten into a confrontation, and they never backed up their claim of having confronted Palestinian fighters with any body cam footage, anybody captured, any evidence, any drone footage, any evidence whatsoever, ballistic, forensic, anything that would have shown that their story matched up. So I think that at this point we can say that the story of them running over the explosive we're going to lean in that direction. So one Israeli soldier has been said by the Israeli government to have been killed. So that happens. They're not going to name a person, a soldier who didn't die. So somehow some Israeli soldier did die. We also have, and we can roll A2 here while I'm explaining this. So this is, this is drone footage put out by the Israeli military, and you can go and find the longer video, which claims to have found evidence that Hamas is playing games with the remains of captives. So this is actually an Israeli soldier who was killed about in 2024, and Israel at the time was able to recover most of his remains, but there was some portion remained with Hamas. And basically what they're saying happened in this footage is that they kind of moved it to a particular area and then called in the Red Cross and called in a photographer and said, look, like, we found this body here. And then they turned it over to the Red Cross. And what Israel is saying is that this is evidence that they're playing games and they're stalling for time, and that in fact they do know where more of the remains are than they're letting on. This still remains to develop. We don't know exactly yet what happened here, but you can watch the video and see for yourself that the Israeli claim, like, on its face, seems to have some merit to it.
And this is what they have released, as you said. So I mean, this is one of those where,
and we also have to be extremely careful, because any government should have its claims treated with extreme skepticism. But Hamas is a government too. So it's like,
listen, we have no idea. There is, I mean, this is part of the difficulty in the post-war collapse of Gaza, is that, is there any centralized Hamas in terms of dealing with,
and the more Hamas tries to become centralized, the more they criticize.
Exactly, the more they get criticized, the more they get bombed now.
And should 102 people have been killed?
104, I think, is this morning. 104? Yeah, 104 Palestinians killed as of this morning in retaliation. We don't exactly even know what the retaliatory strike was, who the people were that were involved. I do know.
And let's think about this. In either of these scenarios, okay, let's say that you did catch them playing games with these remains and stalling for time. Does that justify a bombing campaign across Gaza that kills more than 100 people and wounds more than 200? And if they did encounter a fighter who had been stuck for 8 months in a tunnel and he popped up and there was a firefight, does that justify killing 100
Well, let me just read from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Israel's military says Wednesday that the ceasefire was back on in Gaza after it killed 104 people, including 46 children. 46 children! Exclamation. Are these not war crimes? Question you
they
can
are.
ask
Those are war. Those are by definition war
a question
crimes.
you can. Yeah, it almost seems quaint, frankly, after what we all lived through. We will also note that from the administration, they're still trying desperately to hold this thing together. Let's put this up here on the screen. This is A3 Vice President J.D. Vance telling reporters that the Gaza ceasefire will hold despite today's exchange of fire. Quote: "The ceasefire is holding. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be little skirmishes here and there. We know that Hamas or somebody else within Gaza attacked an IDF soldier," he said, notably avoiding a definitive assignment of blame on Hamas. "We expect the Israelis are going to respond, but I think the president's peace is going to hold despite it." That seems interesting, Ryan, when we compare with the statement of Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And this, to set context for Rubio here, this was on Air Force One before these incidents, and I feel like Rubio, the way he poked in here and put his face in front of Trump, sort of greenlit what came next. As we talked about last week, there's now this deconfliction zone, where the U.S. says that any response to a ceasefire break has to come through the United States. The United States is going to make sure that the peace is maintained through this 200 service member unit and this deconfliction zone. And Netanyahu had said publicly, "We appreciate the Americans, but of course we'll never allow that. We are our own sovereign people." And so there's been a tug of war over who gets to break this ceasefire. Can Israel just unilaterally break it? And then you have Rubio coming out and basically saying, yeah, Israel can do whatever it wants. So listen to Marco Rubio on Air Force One here.
You're talking about the strike against the Palestinian Jihad individuals? Yes. Yeah, look, Israel didn't surrender its right to self-defense. Obviously, the ceasefire is based on obligations on both sides. By the way, we'd also like to see Hamas speed up the return of hostage bodies. We still have 13 hostages, 2 Americans included. But we don't view that as a violation of the ceasefire. They have a right. There's an imminent threat to Israel, and all the mediators agree with that.
So leaning a little closer to Israel there. Now, but at the same time, as you heard him say, we don't consider the slow release of the remains to be a violation of the ceasefire. And that's been a huge issue in Israel. Because they really believe that they have all of the bodies and they're lying about it.
And actually, one of the things that the Hamas has responded with, they say, quote, "We confirm that any Zionist escalation will hinder the search, excavation, recovery of the bodies,
obviously,
which will lead to a delay in the occupation's recovery of the bodies of its dead." Later, Hamas issued a statement calling on mediators to take immediate action to pressure Israel to restrain its escalation against civilians in Gaza and to compel it fully abide by the ceasefire agreement. What's crazy is this morning is Israel now is saying that they are back in full compliance of the ceasefire. So it's one of those where, I don't really know what ceasefire means if you just get to bomb and attack each other based on whatever you want. An IDF reservist, by the way, was apparently killed in that Tuesday attack. Yeah. I did find it interesting in Rubio's comment. He said Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Maybe you can explain to this. They are not party to the ceasefire, correct?
No, they are.
But this is what I'm trying to get at, is that politically, yes, but this is what I'm saying in terms of the actual control inside of Gaza.
Yes.
As in, who knows? There's roving, there's no central law and order.
Right.
There's people with guns, in an area which has been bombed to nothing. It'd be like saying that, in the middle of a Mad Max collapse, that certain looters or something speak on behalf of the entire population. It just doesn't really work that way.
Right. And just the way that the kind of defense of Gaza worked over the last 2 years, you'd have all of these different units who were pretty stationary. They would move around, but if you're the Beit Hanun battalion, you stay in Beit Hanun. You're not kind of shifting around the strip. And so for operational security, obviously there is not a lot of electronic communication going on between a lot of these units because Israel has that entire thing tapped and wired, and they're gonna map out the different flows of communications and just then start carpet bombing any areas they see being lit up. And so that was always a question going into the ceasefire, exactly what you're saying. Okay, we've got the negotiators in Doha agreeing to this on behalf of PIJ and on behalf of Hamas, but do they speak for every guerrilla unit in in Gaza, and the hope was basically from the mediators and from everybody involved was that just the pressure of the momentum of the ceasefire would then kind of basically work to persuade. This is more persuasion. Like, you're not ordering. Like, these guys are armed and they're out there. They can make their own decisions. So yes, that is a live question here. Which when Israel then kills more than 100 people, think about what that does to the psychology of these fighters,
right,
who didn't like the idea of the ceasefire to begin with, because they're like, we think for whatever reason, and now they're like, look, we told you. It's been 3 weeks, exactly 3 weeks. They're saying, look, we told you Israel was never going to abide by this. Now they just killed another 100 people for nothing.
Right, and so the health ministry, caveats, etc. 46 children, 20 were women of the 104 Palestinians who were killed. Interesting. Right, in terms of the Israeli response there. We do have some of the initial views of what that looks like. Let's go and put this image up here on the screen. This was immediately yesterday in the aftermath of what some of the attacks actually looked like, and all of this actually is in line with this new yellow line. We can put that up here on the screen for the Wall Street Journal. Ryan, again, maybe you can help explain it a little bit to the audience. This so-called yellow line was the demarcation line through which Israel would control the ceasefire. But from the Wall Street Journal, they're saying a trip to the Gaza yellow line shows that Israel is digging into its positions,
right,
and seems to creating some sort of permanent berm for some sort of buffer zone. So can you just explain, because I believe that the yellow line that was originally agreed to has now changed, and they're actually occupying more of Gaza than they initially agreed upon.
Right. So the deal was, okay, Israel will withdraw back to this yellow line, and then as soon as they do that, we being Hamas will release all of the captives. And so Israel withdrew back to this yellow line, Hamas released all the captives, and then people started going back to their homes. People came close to this yellow line, which is not marked anywhere at the time, still is not really marked. And so they'd go to, say, eastern Gaza City, where their homes are, and they would be shot and killed. Like an entire bus, a family in a bus, the entire family killed inside this bus. And so you had then this kind of contradictory impulse on both sides. Humanitarian organizations would say, well, wait a minute, this is not fair. You're not marking, like, you're not even telling people. So what kind of sick game is this? Like, people just have to guess. And Israel will say, well, we published maps. They should be able to look at the map. But people can't even recognize their own neighborhoods because it's just complete rubble.
Yeah.
Like, and think about as you're walking through your own neighborhood, like the different ways that you know how to get around. Like, there's this giant tree. There's this yellow house at the corner. There's the gas station here. Now imagine you've been away for 8 months. You come back. The tree is gone. The gas station is a pile of rubble. The yellow house is a pile of rubble. The red house that you knew was a pile of rubble. Like, at that point, how do you even find your way? So saying that, hey, there's a map on Facebook that you can look at isn't very helpful for people. Then they said, okay, we're going to put out yellow markers like every 200 meters or something. Also not extraordinarily helpful. Now they're building much more significant reinforcements, and then you see the contradictory nature of it. You're like, oh, wait a minute. So now, basically, this is just going to become your territory, because what's inside the kind of Hamas-controlled area, if you want to call it that, is basically Western Gaza, but not northern and southern, and then not the eastern part either. So it's like the inner slice of it, and all of the kind of agricultural area, lots of area that used to be heavily populated, is all within this Israeli zone. And they, ironically, I saw some, I think, propagandists calling it like free Gaza. It's like, no. The part that's occupied by Israel can't really call that free Gaza. But what they're setting up is just never leaving this area. Like that seems to be, and that's what the Wall Street Journal is suggesting here, that like they're reinforcing this in a fundamental way. And the irony being that they were negotiating over whether the buffer zone at the edge of Gaza would be 800 meters or 1,200 meters. And now Israel seems to be trying to create a reality where they're just way inside there.
And so broadly here with the ceasefire, Ryan, what do you expect, in terms of how this all plays out? Because it flagged by our producer, Mac, let's put this up here on the screen. Netanyahu's testimony, if you're all wondering, in his criminal trial was cut short yesterday over, quote, security developments that happened in Gaza.
Amazing coincidence. Yeah.
It just keeps happening, doesn't it? So it's one of those where, is it every single time that he's going to have to testify that there just happens to be some sort of pretext in Gaza, like at the subject of the Israeli political, sphere of what's happening, and then apparently America is just, fine with them violating the ceasefire and encroaching here on the yellow line. It looks very grim, and all the cynics, initially talking about the ceasefire seem pretty vindicated, I think, today.
Yeah, I wish we would just give the guy asylum, like political asylum, get a place in South Florida. Like it is not fair for 100+ Palestinians to have to die so that he can delay a criminal trial. That's no reason for anybody to lose a life.
Right.
Like just end this. Like but yes, this is whenever he's gotten into political trouble or criminal trouble over the last 2 years, you've seen strategy change and tactics change around the attack on Gaza, and we're still seeing that.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.